Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Good morning, my friends. It's me, John Davis, and I am here in Spirit Cafe. We have a wonderful guest for you today with a lot of credentials under her name. And so I'd like to, before we get to her, I'd like to bring in, of course, my co-host in crime, the lovely Tamara Zoner. Good morning, Tamara. How are you this morning?
Good morning, John. I'm curious this morning. Why do you always say co-hosting crime? We're co-hosting spirit, man.
Yeah, well, we're the crime of spirit, right?
Talking about the religiously disenchanted.
Right. Exactly.
Which can be a crime to some.
Well, and let's face it, we talk about spirituality without the guilt. For the religions that have a lot of guilt, we are committing a crime in their eyes.
I know.
We're taking the guilt right out of it.
Yada yada. Please forgive us.
Yeah. So why don't you lead us into our guest today?
All right. Well, this morning we have Christine Gold, and I love to let our guests tell us about themselves because they know more about them than I do. So, Christine, why don't you give us your brief bio and then jump right in and tell us how you got to where you are today.
Hi, John and Tamara. Thank you so much for having me on. And yes, I am coming to you live today from Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. And I am an empath first and foremost. I mean, I don't really like labels, and titles really don't mean a lot to me. They mean more to my ego and maybe to others. But truly, I had my dark night of the soul in 2018, or as I like to call it, the spiritual 2x4 to the head. However you'd like to take it. So you can take it the easy way or the hard way. I tend to lean more on the hard. So there's a reason. I'm an old soul. That's what old souls and empaths are. They've been here for thousands of years, reincarnated. Really, why I'm here as a spiritual medium. I'm also Reiki master and teacher. First and foremost, get that out of the way. I'm really here to lead others, guide others. I'm not a guru. I don't like that term because we are all students of the universe. We're here to teach each other. And I always wake up in the morning and say, I know nothing. So that really sets the stage for my day. Because that leads us to be curious. And curiosity leads us to creativity. Creativity is creation. That's why we're here. So truly, I'm here to lead others to their soul's purpose. Because if anything, 2020 has shown us that. Everything we're doing, everything we thought was our lives, thought we're doing the right thing, had the right job, going to college, whatever it was, relationships, it's all falling apart. It's all dismantled. It's broken, and we're rebuilding. New Earth, I'll throw that out there as well. I'm sure many of your followers maybe know who Dolores Cannon is. I follow quite a few. So, and what do I do? Oh gosh. It really is, I call it like your soul call, because there's something inside of you. I don't know about you, but every day I get up, I'm like, okay, seize the day. Let's do this. Let's, really just lead by purpose and by meaning and not by money. I mean, money is terrific. However, there's a lot of that law of attraction stuff out there. And I've seen many of my clients, what's the word? Become disenchanted, thinking it's something outside of them. And it's not. You have everything you need right here. It's all inside. You just need to discover it and unlock and unleash it. So really, we're all magicians. We're all alchemists. We all have the power.
I couldn't agree more. That's exactly what I teach over on my YouTube channel. So I love the use of the cosmic 2x4 because my good friend Atira uses that for me, and then now I use it in reference to Tamara, the cosmic 2x4. I think you're right in the fact that I think that right now we are going through massive change. And I think there's too many labels placed upon the change. Dolores Cannon has her, new earth and all that. I think it literally is just a shift in consciousness. And I think that we need to stay, for me personally, I believe we need to stay out of the labels of it, because I think once you start labeling, you start diminishing the potential, in my opinion. Tamara, what's your thought on that?
Appreciate the way you just phrased that. We limit the potential when we label. I like that very much. And I agree that there's definitely a shift and an opening. So that's kind of how, if I were to put a label on it, it's an opening. And more people are opening to their own truth. More people are opening to what life's really meant to be about. And yes, like you mentioned, Christine, money is great and necessary. And if we follow that, then we're not following our hearts. And it's our heart that will lead to us all experiencing more joy and purpose in our lives and in this world together. And we're in it together after all.
Exactly right. Christine, what are your thoughts on what we just said?
Yeah, no, it is together. It's a consciousness. I had a guest on my show yesterday, and we're talking about groupthink. That's really, it's all of us coming together as a collective. It's not me, it's not you, it's we. There is no separation, there is no division. I read from the good book, A Course in Miracles, and today is day 338, and it's all about your thoughts. Your thoughts become your beliefs. So really, I agree with everything you're saying, and I anchor everything in Christ consciousness. Now I know that a lot of my clients have some old wounds and traumas and associations with religion. So I totally understand. I empathize.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much what this podcast, what our show is about. We're both recovering Catholics, so we get that.
So I'm curious to interrupt you, John. I'm curious to interrupt you to find out where, like, how your upbringing was, Christine, and how you got into the spiritual work that you're doing now. Because John and we always talk about this. We're recovering Catholics. We were both raised in Catholic faith, and both were in two different avenues, right? His mom really encouraged his spiritual exploration, and mine was like, no, if you don't believe what I believe, good luck to you. But so how were you raised? What was your family like? And then how did you take the steps toward your own interpretation of spirituality to make it yours?
Really, family, we didn't go to church. There was no religion. There was, I wouldn't say that, the atheist or anything like that. We just did whatever. I mean, we loved animals. If anything, that was really important in our family. We always had lots of animals, and all of the kids from school would come to our house. So I guess we were the cool house, growing up. So, because it was really free flowing. And, my mom passed 6 months ago, and going through her diary and such, I realized she is much more spiritual than I had realized. And some of the things that I talked about, like Wayne Dyer, I said, Mom, please just start with Wayne Dyer, because she was really struggling. And she had written down Wayne Dyer and Gary Zukav and a few others, and Oprah. And, it was interesting. It brought tears to my eyes. But, I just knew, like, even as from a young age, clairsentience was my highest thing. I could feel, I could sense people's emotions. I could feel the animals' emotions. I knew when adults were lying to me, when other people were lying, their body language, it just didn't match their words. So I knew something was there. And I would always try to help other people. And that turned into people pleasing, being the oldest in the family and feeling responsible. So that's, that upbringing. And then having 2 attempts to die by suicide, being depressed most of my life, a seasonal affective disorder. I know that there was a lot of depression in the family. I had it as well. And anxiety, it kind of manifested, especially, coming up to 2018. And then everything crashed for me. And I had a mentor. I seen a video on YouTube. So if you're ever struggling or you're curious about something, go and just read or go watch something and find that spark. And she basically said, my anxiety and depression are highly linked to my gifts not being utilized, whatever they were. So for me, it was spirituality because I never really tapped into any of that. I mean, we played around with a Ouija board once and it totally freaked me out as a kid. But other than that, we didn't. We loved, ghosts and all the mysticism as kids. But now it's like, no, it's not a mystery anymore. So I basically had a scholarship with her as well. I had to step out of my comfort zone because there's no growth when you stay in your little box.
For sure. That is one thing I know. Yeah, it's in our discomfort and our willingness to be in it that the biggest growth occurs. People are so in a hurry to get through whatever lower depleting emotions they're feeling, and they don't realize that there's so much gold in those lower feelings. And I always say, to my clients and to people, look at those instead as something to avoid, as an opportunity to rest, to go within, to, just sit on the couch, have a cup of tea and a good cry. Like it's an opportunity, not something to be avoided, because there's so much learning in it.
Yeah, one of the wisest people I know has this little catchphrase that says it's something you grow through. Miss Tamara's on her. You don't go through it, you grow through it, right?
Exactly. You grow through it depending on your perspective and your willingness to lean into it, right? Yeah, you grow through it.
My good friend Dan Thurman is a world-class motivational speaker. He has a book he wrote called Off Balance on Purpose. And he talks about you have to put yourself out of balance. And sometimes when you get into those dark places, you're way out of balance. And, sometimes you gravitate towards what you can express as a positive. Now, Christine, for you, you started this interview, you start off with saying, first and foremost, I'm an empath. Now, in my experience, when I have met people who are highly empathic, they gravitate towards animals. The next thing you said was we had a lot of animals. So you said that right on the thing, because animals tend to love unconditionally. And so they can relate, an empathic person can relate better to an animal than they can to a lot of humans, because the humans are dealing with their own fears and anxieties themselves. So did you find that to be true for you?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's why a lot of my work still involves animals, whether it's through Reiki, whether it's through coaching with a client, or even as simple as pet sitting. That's something I still love to do. I mean, I see it as a hobby more than anything else, because just being around different animals, they really teach us more than we teach them, just like children.
Right. And do they charge you up when you're around them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We kind of charge each other. It's like it's a commingling. So I always make sure, and I insist this in my clients as well, to make sure that their vessel is clean. They're not bringing their stuff with them, because I feel that's really that's key. Because I have some clients, that have, their pets are on medications, and I'm not saying don't give them medications or even yourself, but there's something there. Why are they, they're basically taking on your stuff. So I'm like, please be responsible with your stuff, because you are unknowingly or maybe knowingly passing this on to your pet or even to other people, your energy, essentially.
Right. I know. I agree with the energy affecting the people around you. I've seen it in my life on a regular basis. We all walk into the room and we can feel the negative person in the room. And on like side of this, we can see the positive person in the room as well. I mean, that's how I met Tamara, right? The positive person walked in the room. I was like, "Oh, who's that person?" So it literally. I agree with you. We all feel those energies, but a lot of people are not aware of them. And as an empath, you're naturally experiencing them. Did you have a struggle identifying it as the emotions of others, or did you feel it was when you were first coming out that it was more like mood swings that you were having rather than identifying it as somebody else's stuff?
No, I definitely struggled. But I always describe it as a wave, like a woof. What was
Mm,
that? And it's like, okay, then that's a big indication that's not yours.
Mm-hmm.
And if you practice cleansing and balancing your energetic centers, your chakras, if you're doing prayers, if you're doing meditation, if you're doing any type of grounding, which you should do daily, if not multiple times a day, depending on what you're doing, who you're interacting with, how stressful your job days, whatever it is, are, then you become very body aware,
mm,
very sensory aware. And it's not like you're being hyper vigilant, because you don't want to go to the extreme. You want to be, like Buddha says, in the center, balanced. You're in the Zen zone. You're like, okay, I feel that and I see that, but it's not going to attach to me. It's not who I am. Your aura, if you want to explain it in beginner's terms, like when I started, put yourself in a bubble, whatever it happens to be, right? And then after all, if you practice this daily, it just becomes who you are. It's not like, oh, those people, because when you start, that's dissociation, and that's avoidance, and that's detachment. You got to be careful. You want to be in the center where you're practicing non-attachment.
mm, right, right, makes sense. So you define yourself as someone who is leading others. How exactly do you lead others?
By example.
Yeah, yeah. Do you in your sessions as well? Do you do this? Do you set private sessions for sure?
Absolutely. I always start with my dream journal, and if anybody is wondering what that is, and basically it's recording your dreams. And I'm going to take that actually for myself and into a second book. I've already written a first, into a dream book. I haven't named it yet, but it's in the field. So once you put something in the field, that's when things get real juicy, real exciting. But in the sessions, I start with a dream journal, and then it goes into a channeling, per se, bringing forth their guides, their angels, their loved ones, through mediumship, through psychic events. My soul sessions are prescriptive. They're not predictive. It's somewhere in the middle. I give you the information, and what you do with it is really up to you. There's Reiki as well, going through cleaning the aura, the energetic body, letting them know if there's anywhere along the body I notice anything physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationships, finances, all of it. It all comes forward. It's whatever comes in. So let's say I'm really hoping for my mom to come through. Okay, that's not how spirit works. You can't just select mom and she's going to come through. It could be your crazy aunt that comes through, who has the biggest personality and has something to say. She'll step forward first, and then maybe mom will come trickling through. You just never know.
Right, right.
So really, you come into a session with an open mind and an open heart. That's it.
Yeah. You do, and then they have to as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And do you find that oftentimes they don't?
Maybe at the beginning, because
Mhm.
they're scared. So then we usually do a little meditation or some type of healing frequency to kind of set the stage first, because I try to set up the stage for them by letting them know not to have expectations, that because that the
It's
ego wants to
huge.
get in there. Yes, the ego
It's
wants to
huge.
get in there and twist everything, and it has to be a certain way. And she doesn't say this, then she's terrible. Don't You're sabotaging yourself. Don't don't be the saboteur.
Right, right.
Just allow. So I really try to get them to relax, and then once they're relaxed, because a lot of people trying to get online, oh my god, this is happening, my internet, or I had a terrible day, and I'm bringing it all with me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or I've had a reader before and I had a terrible experience. So I try to clear that first, because I obviously you can sense that, right?
Oh, sure.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do spiritual coaching sessions with my clients, and it's interesting because they come to my sessions and a lot of times they expect it to be the classic reading, and I don't do the classic reading, right?
Yeah.
And that's not what it's about being in the moment, and like I get a lot of information before I actually do the session, so I like write pages of notes before I get in, and um, it's interesting because what I find is a lot of times I'll have this page of notes, and when I first start talking to them, it doesn't make any sense,
Yep.
and by the end of the conversation, when they've loosened up, the notes fit the whole situation perfectly, and you read the notes at the end and they go, oh my god, I can't believe that was that the way it was, right? So it literally is about getting them to open up, because you can't really get to them, you know where it matters, where they can make change, unless they are open and willing to go there. I completely agree with you on that. And Tamara over here, she coaches people in being happy. So Tamara, do you find when you're dealing with people that you have to get over the fact that they're not first?
Oh goodness, no, we start where they're at.
Right.
And we start exactly where they're at. And that the grounding that you mentioned, Christine, like people, it's the same with any kind of client. I think they're like, oh, I'm getting here from there, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, hold on. Right? Take a breath, feel your feet on the ground, feel your butt in the chair. You're here now. Let's settle into this moment. And I was thinking of this as both of you were talking about, a client coming in with expectations. It's just like giving birth, right? You can have the birth plan all laid out and think it's going to happen exactly this way. And if you're gripping on that expectation, you will never have the real experience, the full experience, and the joy of whatever happens. And so you can have a plan, that's okay, but be open to a totally different kind of magic happening for you because that's when truth will come. Like I have something in mind for my sessions with my clients too, and I'm not doing readings, but uh but then they show up. Right, then they show up and we have to deal with what's in front of us and what's happening right now for them. And so the session may look entirely different because I'm meeting them where they're at and loving them in this moment, not the one I had projected for them.
Right.
So
Right. Exactly. When I was doing my corporate stuff, I would do the thing where I bring the person on the stage with the whip. And
mhm.
if I literally was anywhere but in their experience instead of my own, then there would never be a result on stage. There would never, that person cracks the whip in under 5 minutes and takes targets out of my hand, but it would never have happened if someone wasn't there to say, I understand what you feel, and and then help them negate the fears that they have, and get past them. So now, Christine, when you in your bio it says mediumship, and you just mentioned it. When did you have a understanding that you were, speaking to dead people?
Well, I think it started as a child as well. I'd see, orbs or lights around certain people, um, energy, whether it was, you could tell depending on the color. And Edgar Casey, I followed him quite a bit. Very interesting, Sleeping Prophet. But um, honestly, my whole life, but really when 2018 opened up, it was like boom. Um, it's like I describe it as the inner Christmas tree.
Mm,
Everything just came on board. Everything lit
right.
up. Even, I'd get names in my head. I'd get songs, and I'm like, okay, who is this for? And even at the beginning, it comes in randomly, and that's what intuitive hits are. It's like we're talking right now, and all of a sudden I'm thinking baseball, and I'm like, well,
Mm,
where'd that come from? So that means that there's some messaging coming in. It's not necessarily for whoever's here right now. It could be for someone that I haven't met yet.
right. Right.
Right?
It could be for
Or
someone listening to this in 2 weeks, right?
Mhm.
absolutely, it could be for a future client coming in. So I write it down, and I'm like, okay, I leave it alone. And even with, sessions with my clients as well, they might not understand it, but maybe in a day, a week, a month, a year, I'm still getting emails. Oh my goodness, Christine, remember when you told me this? And I do write down most of it, but I record the sessions too, so they could keep them. Because like I told them, it won't make sense right now, but maybe some of it will, but then you'll be like, oh my goodness, because we tend to have spiritual amnesia.
Right.
So
I have a very gifted friend. She's one of the Edgar Casey Foundation certified psychics, actually.
nice.
And she, her readings are always spectacular about a year later.
Nice.
In 2000, she actually said, you're going to be basically being a three-peat. You're going to be speaking to three-peat suitors. Basically, she was talking about my corporate speaking career. And that didn't happen for another 10 years. But, and then she read for me in 2017. And I just went back and I listened to it, and it was exactly what's happening in my life right now. So I think that there is no time, linear time. It's just all is kind of happening. So that being said, when you're with a client, do you get very specific things for this time that they're in now often, or is it something that's out of time with where they are at the moment?
It's bits and pieces. It's very random. A lot of times, the dreams that couple nights before the client's reading, I astral traveling. So going through their home, very specific things like you have a red piano, you have 3 stories. Are you surrounded by a lot of trees? And they're like, it's like, you're here. I'm like, yeah, we were here. We were together.
Mm.
And I never question it, because it's not about me, it's about the client. So, and that's why I do proper clearings and all of that to remove myself basically out of the equation and let all, the client and I call it their team through, their angels, their loved ones, their guides, to come fully through, and never question it. And whatever comes, sometimes, when I write something down or it comes in and they're telling me, like, I've caught myself, I'm like, I don't want to say that. But I just say it. And then the client is like, what? How did you know? Or, oh my goodness, no one knew that. I get that one quite a bit. Or another confirmation is, I always knew it, but was never spoken.
Mm.
Yeah, I get that. So we're rounding on to 30 minutes. So why don't you tell everybody how they get a hold of you, what all the information that we need for that, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Sure. You can always reach out through all social media channels, 24K Healing or 24 Karat Healing as well. My website is christine.gold. I've made it very easy, christine.gold. As well, I have so many free programming, an empath circle. It's a safe space. We meet 2 times a week on meetup.com. So you can search up there as well, or send me an email, 24khealing@gmail.com. And then, of course, there's my podcast, The Power of Healing Your Energy. That's live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific. You can watch and or listen on your favorite podcast. And I also have a mentorship coming up. I started this mentorship a year ago where I guide anyone that's ready to take it to the next level. They've done the work, but they're ready to really, become the spiritual entrepreneur, whatever that looks like. So I take a group of 10 through and pretty intense 3 months or a year, depending on, if you're really wanting to dig in. So that's available as well on the website.
Nice.
Well, wonderful. So Tamara, you want to take us out of this place?
Sure thing. Thank you, John. Thank you, Christine, so much for being here. And thank you, listeners, for listening, because without you, there would be no point to this. It would be just John and me having our groovy conversations, which we would do anyway, but we love having you here. So please let us
That's
know.
so true.
Because it's fun to talk to
It
each
is
other.
totally fun.
So we hope you're having fun listening in, and we'd love to read your comments and hear your thoughts. And please give us a big old 5-star review wherever you are listening from. And share this with people who might be interested in the topic and in exploring their own spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. I'll try to do my John voice. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you for joining us at Spirit Cafe, a place where you can safely explore your spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. Leave all comments and suggestions on the Spirit Cafe podcast Facebook page.